On today's episode, we have our wide receiver rankings, and it's a very special edition of the Regression to the Mean podcast. We have Kev Mahserejian, the rotosurgeon himself, joining us today to talk through Week 10 wide receiver rankings. Kev, nice of you to join us, mere earthlings who aren't top 10 in fantasy expert rankings on Fantasy Pros. We appreciate you hopping on. How you doing today, man?
Yeah, guys, long time no talk. We should do this more often. It's been like, a whole 5 minutes since we've had a podcast together.
Yes, Kev is alluding to the fact that we just wrapped up talking about Week 10 running backs. If you haven't had a chance to check out that episode yet, it is in our feed. Go click on it. You know what to do. Before we jump into today's episode, Kev, where can the people find you?
Twitter at rotosurgeon. That's where, my train of thought, my stream of consciousness, that's where everything spews. But also make sure to go to my Patreon where all of my rankings, top 8, haha, that's so sick. But yeah, so all of my fantasy football rankings are there. And also the Operating Room podcast where I have restarted. Well, I was kind of lagging for the last month or so, but I'm back to pod. And I'm excited to talk more fantasy because it's been a while since you guys heard my voice.
Rotosurgeon is one of the best follows on all of Twitter. Great musings about why Roshan Johnson's a bum and what Selena Gomez is up to. Only place in the world that you can get that content on one page. Go follow Kev on X now, I guess. X?
Yeah, I think so.
On today's episode, again, I have ranked the top 45 wide receivers, and I've broken them into tiers. Kev and Aidan have gone through them. Kev actually hasn't, but Kev, again, has ranked every single position this week like he's done every week. So we're going to have a great discussion around the tiers.
Even tight ends.
Even tight ends from Kev here, which is, it's tight ends give him a tight end. Was that your phrase that you said, Kev?
Okay. I'd prefer to not.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. That was my bad.
We'll never do that again. We'll never do that again. But yes, we're going to go through the top 45 wide receivers. But before we do that, we just want to say thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for spending 2 to 3 hours of your life with us each week. This podcast would be nothing without you. If you are listening for the first time or the 100th time and you aren't yet subscribed to this channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on all that we have coming to you weekly on this feed. Like all of our content, our YouTube channel is completely free. Week 10 wide receiver rankings. You guys ready?
Let's rip it.
Born ready.
This is where you're really feeling the bias this week, in my opinion. We don't have Tyreek Hill. We don't have Jalen Waddle. You don't have A.J. Brown. You don't have Devontae Smith. So the rankings just feel a little bit lighter, in my opinion, especially that top tier. The top 3 guys that I feel, and you could rank my third guy as number 1. I wouldn't be that shocked if you did it. But I've got Stefon Diggs at 1, CeeDee Lamb at 2, and I've got Amon Ra St Brown at 3. The guy, Amon Ra St Brown, the aforementioned wide receiver 3 this week, he's got the wide receiver 6 usage and the wide receiver 6 production over the past 6 weeks. It's very tempting, again, to rank him as the wide receiver 1 this week with the Lions facing off against the Chargers defense that's giving up the 6th most fantasy points to wide receivers this season. If you mix that in with the highest point total game on the slate, you're looking at a perfect opportunity for ARSB to eat this week. But Steph Diggs is inevitable, and the heater that CeeDee Lamb's been on over the past 3 weeks is hard to deny. Curious to know your thoughts, guys, on my top 3 wide receivers this week.
I'm not like lower on CeeDee Lamb. I have him at like 4th, just because, again, I said it was a Tony Pollard game. I think they just don't have to throw the ball this week. They're facing, again, Tommy DeVito of the New York Giants. I know they're at home. They can do whatever they want, but like this is just a game that, like, I feel like ARSB, Keenan Allen, Stefon Diggs. I mean, Stefon Diggs to a lesser degree, but they're all in like competitive-ish matches. I mean, Keenan and ARSB, or are they facing? No, excuse me. They're not facing each other. Oh, they are. My bad.
Yeah, they are. They're in the same game.
Yeah, they are. So, like, there's a competitive matchup there. There's going to be need to throw, I feel like, on both ends. And Stefon Diggs is 1 because, he's seeing an absurd amount of targets. But, yeah, CD falls to 4. But just because of, their Giants stink.
Thoughts on this tier, Aiden?
Yeah, I'm excited for ARSB and Keenan. Like kind of Kev said, I think that game is just going to be absolutely electric. The 2 of those guys in a dome, 2 high-flying offenses, quarterbacks that love to sling it. I think both of them could easily go for 20+. I'm so excited for that. I would do Diggs 1 as well, just given the matchup. The Denver secondary has just been, handing out candy to wide receivers. So I like it. And then CeeDee, whether he's at 2, 3, 4 for me, it's all kind of the same. I think he absolutely belongs up there, just given the tear he's on right now. Just absolute heater for the guy.
Next tier I have here, Keenan Allen, Jamarr Chase, Adam Thielen. Not a ton of notes here. Keenan Allen, I think, is a positive regression candidate. He's had multiple end zone flubs with Justin Herbert uncharacteristically not being able to hit him in the end zone. Keenan is absolutely at the top of his game, even though his production isn't the wide receiver one that it was coming out of the gates. I feel like he is setting up for I think I might have him too low now that I look at it. The Detroit secondary has been terrible against wide receivers this year. He might be in a spot where he goes absolutely crazy. Jamarr Chase, I think he's going to play this week. T. Higgins, limited participant today because he injured his hamstring mid-practice. Not a good track record of guys injuring their hamstrings mid-practice and then playing that week or even the week after. I think Jamar is going to play, though. He's dealing with a sore back. And then Thielen, fantastic usage against the Bears secondary that I think has been performing better, but it's gettable. Thoughts on these three guys? I think we've shared a little bit of Keenan. Kev, your take on what's going on with the Bengals right now?
I'm terrified if I have Chase or Higgins right now because T injuring himself mid-practice is
never good.
I mean, Wednesday at least,
Brutal.
But at the same
on
time.
On a Wednesday.
Last thing you want. The last thing you want is a T. Higgins limited designation because you never know if you're getting the goose egg or the 20-point performance. So
don't you
if
dare
I had
bring
him,
it up.
There's no one loves being active on game days and disappointing you more than T. Higgins, and I hate him for it, which is why I only drafted him best ball this year. God bless. But yeah, so I'm going to be lower on T. I've dropped him beyond number 12 because I can't. But Chase, he has the back injury and he didn't practice. And we've seen Chase play through injury, but at the same time, I don't think the matchup against Houston, I think they're going to be able to run the ball a little bit. So we don't know. And they threw touchdowns to Drew Sample and Irv Smith. Joe Burrow looks like he's back. Yeah. So I think Joe Burrow, he could use Tyler Boyd. He could use whatever he wants. Joe Mixon. I don't think Chase has to be carrying the load, but if T. Higgins is out, obviously you're going to start him and be like top 6 or whatever.
47-point total in that game. And I have got my thoughts on the Houston side of things. I think Mixon, and we didn't touch on him in running backs. I had him pretty high. I think Mixon's in a good spot this week. So that's a good call out, Kev. The next tier I have here is a bit more of my aggressive tier that I'd say. I have DK Metcalf, wide receiver 7, Chris Olave, wide receiver 8, Diontae Johnson, wide receiver 9, and Mike Evans, wide receiver 10. DK, I have him 5 spots ahead of expert consensus rankings, and I've been pretty down on this Seattle offense. You can attest to Aidan. No bias, though. Not because I'm a Niner fan. He's got the wide receiver 21 usage, wide receiver 65 production over the past 6 weeks. That's not a typo. Wide receiver 65 production over the past 6 weeks. The usage has been there. It's even ticked up over the past 2 weeks. But DK's production has been borderline bizarre. Like last week, he has a 50-yard reception and then nothing afterwards. There's hope, though. Washington's defense is garbage. They have made every single move to make their defense worse. And I think this is a great get-right spot for Seattle and just offense in general in this game. I feel pretty bullish on the receivers on both sides. Seattle has a 26-point implied team total. If there was ever a week for positive regression for DK, it would be it. So I didn't really want to rank him this high, but I was looking at these other guys around him, and I'm like, I don't really know what to do here. So I'm curious to know your thoughts on this tier, guys.
I have DK a little lower, but still top 11-ish, so I'm not that much lower. The thing is, I'm praying 6 foot 170-pound Emmanuel Forbes is matched up on DK.
Flat Stanley,
the funniest thing I could imagine. Just on 6'4", 220 something pound DK Metcalf or whatever he is. That would be literally we saw AJ Brown daddy him. Emmanuel Forbes would be left in the dust. So I'm optimistic on DK this week. I think this is a regression week. He's had double-digit target weeks where he didn't perform. So I think he's
weird, bizarre. Aidan, your thoughts on this tier?
Yeah, I think it's a good get-right spot for that entire offense. Kind of one thing I was going to say. That defense is just so bad. I think Geno has a good week too. I think he finally bounces back. I think just an overall good performance from that offense. And then DJ, dude, the guy's back, the clear number 1 in that offense. I know we kind of debated maybe George Pickens kind of caught up, and it's just not really the case. He's averaging more than 10 targets over the last 2 weeks. Finally got back in the end zone and broke the streak. if we're lucky, it's kind of like, the dam is broken and those things really start to stack up week over week. So again, it feels weird seeing some of these guys up here in the top 10, but to your point, like without, the Tyreeks, the AJs, they're all just kind of slided up or like 5 this week. So no, I think this is a good tier.
I'm getting some breaking news. Speaking of DK Metcalf, woo 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 woo. I don't have a one, but like I saw a tweet from Ben Glassmeyer NFL on Twitter. Make sure you'll follow him. Ben's a good guy, really smart, good at football. I will not believe Seahawks Reddit rumors. I will not believe Seahawks Reddit rumors. He repeats that. I asked question mark, and he sends me probably completely fake. I can't find the original post, but rumor that DK punched Geno.
No.
DK punched Geno. That's fake. That's got to be fake.
It has to be because I know there's the past of like
yes, that's a trap. That's a trap.
Yeah. I don't want to believe it, obviously for fantasy's sake, but I think it would be hilarious if Geno got punched again, and it was DK instead of a defensive player this time. Like not that I want people punched, but I think it would be funny if it happened again. So
that would be something. And then they just play even better.
Yeah. Imagine he goes off, or like he only targets DK, or he doesn't target him at all. I think that would be a funny narrative.
Wow. If he socked Geno in the face, that would be, again, no bias. As a 49er fan, I would take no joy in Seattle dysfunction. Diontae Johnson, again, before we move on, he punched George Pickens in the face with his performance. DJ, 5th in target rate, 2nd in team yards share, and 9th in air yard share. 9th in air yard share for a check down Charlie type receiver, Diontae.
Receiver Rice.
Rushy Rice? I can't say his name.
Receiver Rice.
Receiver. Okay. DJ, though, if he is getting this many targets and he's also commanding a deeper ADOT, we're off to the races with Diontae Johnson. Even though Kenny Pickett's garbage, I feel really confident about at least one receiver being able to vacuum up targets in that offense.
Yeah.
Next year I have here DeAndre Hopkins, Chris Godwin, Brandon Ayuk, Christian Kirk, and Michael Pittman. I continue to be super high on Chris Godwin. I have got him 9 spots ahead of expert consensus rankings. Wide receiver 12 usage, wide receiver 25 production over the past 6 weeks. He's another positive regression candidate. Mike Evans' role hasn't been that great, and his production hasn't been that great over the past 6 weeks, and that's what happens when you're kind of a feast or famine, deep shot receiver, and you got Baker Mayfield, who isn't super accurate on those passes. The Titans are currently surrendering the 6th most fantasy points per game to wide receivers this season. I like Godwin a ton to rebound this week. I've got him pretty close to Mike Evans. I think they should be a little bit closer. I think Mike Evans should continue to be ahead of him because he's always just such a big play waiting to happen. But Chris Godwin's really the big guy. And then Ayuk, I'm a little down on this week. It really has nothing to do with his role. It has everything to do with Deebo coming back. I've got Deebo 6 spots ahead of expert consensus rankings. And then Christian Kirk, too, big riser for me as well. I just think the Niners' secondary isn't that good, and he gets those layup targets. So any thoughts on this specific tier?
I'm lower on Kirk because I think this could be like an Ingram week, like Ingram ETN. Like maybe I don't know what they're going to do with that one. But like, yeah, Ridley post bye. It just feels weird. He's averaging fewer than 6 targets per game over the past 3 weeks. I don't really know what's going to happen with Kirk. The pass rush is much better for the 49ers now with Chase Young there. And they're both coming off bye, so like it could just be an ugly week.
Probably.
I have no clue, honestly. I'm lower on Kirk, definitely. But otherwise, yeah, everything looks pretty good. I'm pretty much at where you're at.
Aidan, I know you had some thoughts on Ayuk. Tell me a little bit about your you said you were glazing him. Explain to the listeners at home what you meant by that.
Yeah, I've been saying it since before the season started, and I think we've seen it this year. Like, he's just better than Deebo. He's out-targeted him. He's out-yarded him. He's scored more touchdowns than him. I just think he's just an all-around better receiver. I liked Deebo's role better before CMC, as I think they used him a lot more creatively on those like design touches out of the backfield, handoffs, jet sweeps. Whereas I think now, like if you're just looking at like wide receiver to wide receiver, Ayuk gets more targets. He's a better route runner. The only kind of thing that's I think better for Deebo this week is it's not a great man-to-man matchup. The Jags are giving up 4 more yards against zone, so that is Deebo, the kind of like zone breaker. But I Like I would never put Deebo ahead of Ayuk. I just think he's that much better than him right now, and he's kind of just producing week to week. And who knows if Deebo can play a full game? It's like the dude feels like he gets hurt like every other game too. So it's also something else to factor in.
I have Deebo ahead of Ayuk. I don't want to say it's not close, but like when it comes down to like half PPR at least, I have Deebo much higher typically because he's more of a touchdown threat. Yeah, so Deebo, it's just weird with him and Ayuk. I feel like Ayuk has to do a lot more on fewer touches, whereas with Deebo, at least he gets the rushes in there. Like he'll get like 2 or 3.
Also,
So it's like if you want to talk like touches and like money touches too, because they'll use Deebo around the goal line too if they want. I'm definitely going to favor Deebo when all is healthy. I think George Kittle is the guy who loses out, if anything, because they're going to ask him to block a lot more because the Jaguars are like, they have some pretty decent pass rushers and like, Allen and Trayvon Walker, at least they're big. So I think Kittle's asked to block. Ayuk and Deebo, I have them close, so it's not really they're both like around wide receiver 20-ish.
Ayuk
like
is getting better downfield targets. Yeah, he's got better downfield targets. Him and Purdy have a great rapport. The only issue is Christian McCaffrey just scored a little touchdowns, so it's really hard for these guys to hit their ceilings because he's just a black hole. He just takes all of the touchdowns. The next tier that I have here, again, we talked about Deebo Samuel. I've got T. Higgins, wide receiver 17. I might take him completely off the board, off his hamstring injury. Not ideal. Wide receiver 18, Davante Adams. 19, Marquise Brown. Wide receiver 20, Terry McLaurin. Nico Collins, wide receiver 21. Garrett Wilson, wide receiver 22. So really deferring in this tier, I've got Marquise Brown 6 spots ahead of expert consensus rankings. I'm not super bullish on Kyler being a rock star for fantasy. I am bullish of him being more accurate than Josh Dobbs was to Marquise Brown. Marquise Brown, wide receiver 15 usage, wide receiver 38 production over the past 6 weeks. He had really good rapport with Kyler last year before Kyler got hurt. Marquise Brown was a top 12 weekly play in PPR. So I feel good about Marquise Brown against an Atlanta secondary that's giving up 35 fantasy points per game over the past 4 weeks to wide receivers. And then Garrett Wilson. So he's the wide receiver 2 in usage, the wide receiver 22 in production. That's mind numbing. And it's insane that this is an improvement over last year with Zach Wilson. I want to rake him higher, but given the low point total, the fact that the Raiders are in a run funnel, I just feel like I have to move him down the ranks. But that's really it for this tier. Any thoughts, guys, before we jump to the next one?
Sounds about right. Yeah. I agree with you.
I like Marquise a lot. Maybe not this week quite yet. Yeah. As you mentioned, he averaged over 18 points a game in those first 6 weeks last year with Kyler before getting hurt. So it's not the best matchup. Atlanta's been pretty stingy to wide receivers. They're in the bottom, I think, 3rd in terms of giving that up to wide receivers. So it might not be this week, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he pops for 15 or 20 points with Kyler's return. So definitely someone to keep an eye on that we've kind of all been waiting for to, reemerge to that 2022 early form.
That'd be cool if he had a mini breakout. I'm not holding my breath, and this also makes me a little nervous for Jefferson. I mean, Jefferson's going to be a better receiver than Marquise Brown, but Josh Dobbs can only throw to tight ends, which is concerning. But I don't understand. I mean, Jesus Christ. He targeted TJ Hawkinson 37% of the times in that game. Okay, so moving on to the next tier wide receivers here. I've got Drake London, wide receiver 23, Tyler Lockett, wide receiver 24, DJ Moore, wide receiver 25, Calvin Ridley, wide receiver 26, Jordan Addison, wide receiver 27, Tank Dell, wide receiver 28. So I've got Drake London way above expert consensus rankings. He's on track to play, and that's really why I'm ahead of him, but I like this matchup against Arizona this week. Wide receiver 24 usage, wide receiver 20 production over the past 6 weeks. Isn't scoring a ton of touchdowns, but he's gotten peppered with targets. I feel good about Heineke as an upgrade over, I already forgot his name. That's amazing. Desmond Ridder. I was like, I could have just flushed that name out of my head forever. I guess the name, just forever, please. Him and Tyson Bagent. Okay, the guy that I have down 6 spots, and it breaks my heart because I love him, but it's DJ Moore. Even though it's a revenge week for DJ Moore against Carolina, and I love revenge, it's hard for me to get super excited about DJ Moore's ceiling with Teabag. It's just, until Fields comes back, it takes away all these deep shots, and Moore's going to get his 5 to 7 targets, but he's been getting 40, 50 yards on him. It's just, he needs the big plays to hit home. That's just not happening with T-Bag. So that's why I've got him lower than consensus. Any thoughts on DJ Moore or anyone else in this tier?
I just said F it. I have Moore at wide receiver 5.
Oh my God. You've got him.
I'm by
both corners are
and
out.
Brian Burns is out. Corners are out. I think, he's kind of like locked in on Cole Kmet, but I think this is the week like, hey, Cole Kmet, go block. We're going to get more open.
I think so. I think with the corners out and Brian Burns, like you said, I think he could go crazy this week.
Yeah, Bagent's averaged 226 yards over the past 2 weeks. He has a 67% completion percentage, so he's at least more accurate. The per target value is much lower compared to Fields, because Fields is just like a monster on deep shots and whatnot. But like, I think they're gonna pepper more. I think this is gonna be the like, hey, F you Carolina, this is how you're supposed to use DJ Moore, and he'll go for like 18 points or some shit. So I have him pretty high. I have him right around Adam Thielen, because I'm like, what's the difference? It's the same like player right now. And Thielen, at least, they both have easy matchups. So
wow, I love that. I love that.
I like DJ this week a ton.
What a zig! I zagged.
Yeah.
I zagged. I didn't look at the bull case. And the bull case is way more fun than me ranking DJ Moore at
dude. Like it's a shitty week. It's like everybody. It's like I have Terry McLaurin at like 12. It's like I don't want that, and I don't want half these wide receivers in my top 20. But yeah, DJ Moore, we've seen him go off, and on a Thursday too. It's another Thursday night for DJ Moore. So let's get that 50-point performance back on the table. Obviously, I'll take 15, but it is what it is.
Another guy in this tier, and you mentioned Christian Kirk being lower on him. Calvin Ridley, though, Kev and Aidan. Mooney Ward has not been good. Charvarius Ward has really struggled over the past 3 weeks. They've been asking him to play a lot more man coverage. Maybe they go back to zone, and he starts to shine and look better. Him on an island against Calvin Ridley seems like a recipe for a nice Calvin Ridley game. I'll leave it at that, based off of how he's played over the past 2 to 3 weeks. So I like Calvin Ridley as a spike week opportunity guy.
I think the big thing with Ridley versus Kirk is press man coverage. So like teams that play a higher amount of press man have benefited Kirk because Ridley struggled against it. Whereas, Kirk coming out of the slot, he's not really dealing with that as much. I still think Ridley's better. So yeah. I'm gonna have them like back to back in my rankings. It just feels like they're both in that low end wide receiver 2 range. If both hit like 10 half PPR points, I think that's pretty fair. It'll be weird. And again, this matchup's probably going to be more favorable to like Ingram or some shit. So I have no idea. It doesn't feel like too good for the wide receivers.
Kirk gets the layup targets. It's just hard to bank on those deep shot feast or famine routes that like Gabe Davis has to hit. It's a tough way to live. Next tier wide receivers here, and I've got Amari Cooper, wide receiver 29, Jahan Dotson, wide receiver 30, Courtland Sutton, 31, Zay Flowers, 32, Jakobi Meyers, 33, George Pickens, 34. Zay Flowers hasn't been very good the past 6 weeks. A lot of people keep ranking him as a mid-tier wide receiver 2. He's more of been a low-end wide receiver 3. I think this offense is very hit or miss. We see Gus Edwards kind of just soak up all the points sometimes, but if Zay Flowers isn't really getting schemed up touches, he's not really excelling downfield yet. It's just hard to get super excited. Like OBJ is playing super well recently for the past 2 weeks in this offense. I know a lot of it occurred in garbage time last week, but I just wanted to call that out with Zay Flowers. A lot of people have been really excited, but I don't know. I'm a little reticent about him right now. And then Jahan Dotson, wide receiver. I've got him wide receiver 32 heads, 2 spots ahead of expert consensus rankings. He's been the wide receiver 4 over the past couple weeks. I like this matchup in a shootout. So, thoughts on this tier, guys?
I'm higher on Dotson, I guess, and okay. I don't love Dotson, but again, it's with the matchups this week overall, and not having like a lot of buys and a lot of good receivers are out. But yeah, I'm around wide receiver 23, just ahead of Tyler Lockett. Behind Amari Cooper, though, because I think Cooper's going to have to eat in a matchup they're going to be down. But back to Dotson. He's pretty good at scoring touchdowns somehow, even though he's not good at getting yards typically, which is weird. But matchup, they're going to have to throw. I think this is a shootout. I think, there's not really much weather concern. Sam Howell, again, second in the NFL in pass yards, even though he only has 7 yards per attempt. But if you're going to throw that much, I want the wide receivers starting in my lineup. Unless Curtis Samuel plays, then I'll be lower on Dotson.
the first 6-7 weeks of the year with like Curtis Samuel healthy were just beyond frustrating, and now he looks like everything we had hoped for in the sophomore year breakout. So yeah, he's scored in back-to-back games. I think 15 and 20 points respectively in the last two, and Sam Howell's going to throw the ball 40 more times this week. So yeah, give me Dotson. He's absolutely in lineups this week, especially with some of these buys and injuries.
Last tier guys here, 10 of them. I think there's a tier break, but I don't know. It's just kind of fuck it, hope and pray. 35, Gabe Davis. 36, Jerry Jeudy. 37, Christian Watson. 38, Pop Douglas. 39, Romeo Doubs. 40, JSN. 41, Rashid Shaheed. 42, Michael Thomas. 43, Noah Brown. 44, our Lord and Savior, Quentin Johnston. 45, Wan'Dale Robinson. And 46, JuJu Smith-Schuster. Out of those 10, pick one. Who's your favorite of the bunch?
I guess Jeudy. He's been a lot better over the past 2 games.
Yeah, he's been better before the bye.
I'm probably going JSN. Kind of liked what I've seen out of him recently. Nice cushy matchup against Washington. Maybe they finally use him, consistently with a higher ADOT of 1 yard. So yeah, give me JSN.
Yeah, I just look at Jeudy. I see obviously the matchup they're going to have to throw against Buffalo. Their cornerbacks have not been good since they lost Trey White. I know they traded for like Rasul Douglas, but I think Rasul's the bigger cornerback. He's going to be on Courtland Sutton, so I might be a little lower on Sutton this week. He's been kind of whatever in the past few games. He's been saved by touchdowns, if anything. And Jeudy, 114 yards, I believe. Yeah, on 11 targets over the past 2 weeks, and he has a touchdown. They've been trying to scheme him more into the game plan, and he's been fantastic. And they didn't trade him, so I guess they're going to have to use him. And they seem like they're trying, which is, they're 3-5. They're not going to win the division, but Pittsburgh's in a playoff spot right now. I don't think it's crazy for them to sneak into a wild card.
I like that. Sneaky Broncos. If I had to pick one, I'm going to be on brand.
Don't say
I'm
it.
going down with the ship. Give me Christian Watson this week against Pittsburgh.
To keep doing this, dude.
he's positive regression. He's the wide receiver 62. He should be the wide receiver 42. All right, guys. So give me a big play. Come on. One of these has to hit, right? Right?
Yeah. If he stays healthy. If he stays on the field, yeah, he could have 80 yards maybe. So I don't think it's crazy.
Down so bad on Watson.
That's like the
I've got
ceiling.
2 Watson skeptics.
drafted him.
I've got 2 Watson skeptics. I'm just going for
You
the
drafted
upside.
Chase Claypool 2.0.
I'm
You
going
drafted
give me upside, Kev. 6th-round upside. It's fine.
Go get Quentin Johnston. He's been decent over the past 3 weeks in terms of target earning and yards. So
I've got both of them on the same team, unfortunately.
I think I would play Quentin Johnston over Christian Watson this week. I mean,
Well, he's got a better quarterback at least. It's just a prayer.
legitimately
Jordan
good
Love's
quarterback.
just to close your eyes and pray. These deep and LaFleur is like these. They throw the ball 20 times a game, and he gets all these guys 4 targets per game, and then Jordan Love hits 50% of his passes. It's just a recipe for disaster for fantasy. It's just a nightmare.
QJ played 90% of the snaps.
He
this
did.
past games
In a rough matchup. And
too. They didn't throw the ball that much, and when they did, they went to Keenan Allen for him to break the record. So and he got the record. He got 10K,
Yeah.
and I think it's a QJ week. I don't know what a QJ week is. It could be 40 yards.
5 for 50.
Yeah, I was
Give
gonna
me the
say,
Michael Thomas.
30 yards,
Give me the Michael
dude.
Thomas.
Yeah. Oh, it'd be
If he finds Pater, that's money right there.
It is.
I'm gonna call it 14 fantasy points out of QJ this week.
Wow.
That'd be
Break
That'd
it.
be nice.
It would
Let's
be
get him in
official. We'd be
space. Let's
Barack.
get him in space,
We'd be
dude.
Barack. They did a
It's a
little
yak
end around to him.
machine.
They did an end around to him. That was cool.
Yeah.
Let's get him in space, man.
And
He's not just
all the Jets
perimeter
defenders
guards.
were in the backfield already. I was how bad is the blocking here?
But that's it for wide receivers. Wide receivers, running backs. We did it with Kev, the man, the myth. Kev, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. Aiden, enjoy the Bears and Panthers game. Enjoy Teabag live in person in Chicago.
I can't believe
It's
it.
going to be
I can't
amazing.
believe this.
Are you going to wear your Mitch or your Justin Fields jersey to the game?
I haven't decided yet.
Gotta go
I
Mitch.
have not decided.
You gotta go
Fields
I
isn't
have not
playing.
decided yet. Yeah.
You got to
Making
go
a bitch. It's Thursday night
Yeah, come on.
10 got himself at the house that Mitch built. Yeah.
for the lulls.